Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Quarantine Chats. And as you can see, I have the biggest guest of all here today, the pastor, Father Jeffrey Romans. Father Romans, how are you?
Good morning, Regis. We're doing fine. How you doing over there in your home?
I'm doing all right. Getting a little stir crazy at this point.
Yeah.
I want to go outside, but doing about as well as anyone, I suppose. We're healthy and we're doing the best we can. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's good. Yeah, we are too. It's a different normal now, I guess. What is normal?
Right.
But Father and I have been figuring it out and working out our schedules together. So we do have dinner every night together. Don't always get to have lunch together because of different Zoom calls and different projects that we're working on.
Right.
Fenway's trying to figure out what the heck is going on because his life is completely thrown out. He's got us around 24/7. He's going for walks every day that's nice out.
Wow.
We'll get out there today. It looks like it's going to be overcast and rainy, maybe. But
it's supposed to be snowing in some parts of the Northeast, so I don't know what the deal is for us.
Yeah. Pandemic's not enough. Now we got to get a snowstorm in May.
Have you seen those lists? And it's like, January we had, this crazy thing, and then we had coronavirus, and then the murder hornets are coming from Asia. Now there's a snowstorm in May, and it's like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, it's very strange. Every month is something in 2020, so maybe it's a good time to get 2020 behind us.
That's right. That's right. You know what? We're almost halfway through.
If only we could jump ahead.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day. Maybe. So that's where I wanted to start off, was ask a little bit about what rectory life has been like for you and for Father Federico. Obviously, I'm sure Fenway is loving this because he probably has never gotten this degree of attention before. So I'm sure he's happy.
At least not from us.
At least not from you. Right. But so what is it? Go ahead. Sorry.
It's been quite strange. I mean, from March, what was it, 13th or 16th? 16th?
Yeah, I think 16th,
March 15th to today. It's just, in the beginning, I was so excited, not that we were in quarantine or self-isolation, but for the freedom of being released from our schedules.
Right.
And thinking of all the things that I could get accomplished. Of course, half of that has been accomplished. In the beginning, it was more like a retreat in a way. Father and I really took to spending more time in prayer, took to time reading and getting caught up on work on our desk. But, it was almost a spiritual retreat the first week or two. And then as we realized this was going to be prolonged, then it kind of set in that, this is not fun.
Yeah.
But we are making it work and we're doing what we can. I mean, we're still using it as a time to increase in prayer and do some reading, but also trying to get different projects done. As you know, we're using social media to help us do a Bible study and a book club and, doing things out of our comfort zone, perhaps, but in ways to get people connected and utilizing all these tools to live stream every day at 1:00, different devotions, coming up with different ideas of how to help people grow in knowledge of their faith and to experience the mystery of God, in Eucharistic adoration and Mass. Even though they can't physically be there, they can still experience that mystery, that transcendence. And we're taking turns cooking. Father has learned how to cook, I should say, and whoever cooks, the other one does the dishes, and it's been working out fine.
There's no better time to learn, cooking, all those skills that we all really should figure out at some point, but never have the time to. Now's the time.
Right. Amen.
I've been mentioning to the NGD a few times how lucky we are to have a parish and a pair of priests who are not only willing to embrace, the technology during this time, but also have figured it out to the point where, there's not huge technical glitches and things actually work. Because it's not easy to just port the entirety of parish life and especially the sacraments onto technology.
Right.
So the fact that that's gone off so well, I think, is a testament to both you and Father Federico and Victoria and everybody who's working behind the scenes to to make that happen.
Yeah, Victoria has gone above and beyond in helping us to get into that comfort zone. So, I mean, in the beginning, we started out with just things going on in our chapel upstairs in the residence here, the rectory. But, as time went on, we realized, we need to be in the church for Sunday Mass at least. And so Victoria and Sandra Centurino and Steve Tyne and Frank Johnson got together and they came up with, what we have now. And I dare say that, it's better than some of those live stream masses that you see utilizing $20,000 systems that the camera goes slowly like this, So the way they've set it up has been amazing. And I hear a lot of great remarks from the parishioners who have written in, saying how much it means to be connected and how grateful they are to everyone that's involved in just trying to keep us all connected. So
absolutely, we really do have a crack team on that project, and I think I've seen a lot of different live stream masses and programming and things like that because everybody is struggling with this at the same time, all parishes. But I really think St. Bridget is towards the top of that list in terms of how we've handled that. So touching on you mentioned the live stream masses in the body of the church proper. And I wanted to touch on that and bring it to the sacraments more in general, because one of the things that I've heard from, the young people who are a part of the NGDs, but also parishioners in general, is that one of the most difficult parts about this whole quarantine experience is not being able to experience the sacraments in person. Hold the Eucharist in your hand, receive the Eucharist into your person. So that's been a big difficulty on the side of our young parishioners specifically, but also the parish as a whole. And I wonder if you might talk a little bit about how that has looked and how that has been different and challenging on the other side as a minister of the sacraments. How has that affected you, not being able to have the parishioners there celebrating Mass with you in person?
Yeah, so it's been really strange, not to use a slang word like that, but 17 years as a priest, even when I was in chancery work, my masses involve people. I do Mass for the staff in the chancery, or I'd go next door to the cathedral and do one of the daily Masses there. So I always had a connection to people. And only when you did a private Mass on your day off or something were you alone. But to have that every day now, and to, like, on Sunday in particular, to be at the altar in the church and to look out and to see emptiness, it's really surreal. And it makes you understand how difficult it is for those people to not be there. And, that's one of the things that really hit Father and I early on in this pandemic, is that we were kind of, celebrating Masses as we do every day. And you're at the altar, you're receiving communion, and then you think how privileged we are as priests to be able to receive the Eucharist, when so many people are just longing for that day that they can come back and do the same. And early on we thought maybe we could do like parking lot Masses and stuff and give out communion, but we realized that the spread of the virus was too dangerous to be able to do that. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess my perception of this whole experience has been, there's an emptiness in our hearts, because part of our ministry is to be with people and to celebrate the sacraments for the people, to represent them to God and to represent God to them. And if they're not there physically, it causes you to have to really realize, through these gifts of social media and through the internet, they're with you, though they're not physically there. So I'd say that. The second, the flip of that, in my view, and my hope and prayer, is that this longing that people are saying they have to receive the Eucharist will provide a deeper respect and desire to receive that Eucharist as often as possible after this pandemic is over.
I have that exact same hope, and I've been thinking, certainly there is an overwhelming amount of negative things that have come from this pandemic, but we know as Catholics that God finds a way to use all things for good. And I really hope that whenever it is that we can have public masses together in the church again, we see more people in the pews, because you don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore. So, sometimes it's when you're a teenager, oh, maybe I don't, mom and dad want to make me go to mass on Sunday. I don't want to go. But when you can't go to mass for 2.5 months, well, then maybe it's like, oh, well, there was really something there that I miss.
I think that's what marks this pandemic, apart from any other major event in the history, of Catholicism, really. Maybe apart from other plagues, perhaps. But, I'm thinking of 9/11. I was in Boston at the time studying to be a priest, and people flocked. And when I say flocked, I mean they flooded the churches. So when this coronavirus was coming, I imagined all these people would be flooding the churches. I never realized it would spread so fast, and we wouldn't be able to do that. So it's in our hearts a desire to go to God when we're facing these major catastrophes, if you want to use that term, and to not be able to go there then, So what's, there's a struggle within. You want to go to church, you want to go to be able to pray, and you want to offer this to God and say, help us. But you can't go into the church because you can't be together. So
absolutely. And that might be, I think for a lot of us, that's a very uncomfortable and abnormal feeling, because I've never had a period like this where I haven't been physically able to go to mass for this long. I don't know that any of us have, hopefully. And especially for some of our young people, I feel like that might be a very new and strange feeling for them, is the desire to go to mass, but not being able to go to mass. We talk, sometimes when I was younger, like I mentioned before, my parents were the drivers of my faith, and they did a great job raising me in the faith and keeping me, going to mass and experiencing the sacraments when I didn't always want to. And I wonder now if that's kind of flipped a little bit, where some of our young people, because of this prolonged absence, and as you mentioned, that desire that's in our hearts to go to God and to receive the sacraments and his grace, but to not be able to right now. And that I wonder, and I imagine that for some of our young people, that's a very foreign, uncomfortable feeling.
Right. Yeah, certainly. It makes me think of the mission territories, where a priest only comes once every 2 or 3 months. So those people don't have the access to the sacraments like we do, that we take for granted here in our country. You have a priest. We have 2 here, thanks be to God. But you don't have to go far. You don't have to journey far to be able to attend mass in a normal circumstance.
Right.
We take it for granted, unlike those in the missions that they wait 2 or 3 months for a priest to come through their village to offer mass, to hear confessions. So they know the longing that we're now experiencing. So yeah, I'm hopeful that the young people will have that longing and really get into, be on fire when they come back, and want to really grow in their faith and really live it out and strive to be holy, be saints.
Well, I know of at least one group that will be coming back with flying colors. We're actually growing. The NGD is growing in quarantine. We're gaining new members on Zoom meetings. So praise God for that.
Yes.
I think this,
your pastor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to come back stronger than we were before the quarantine. So that's, there are still gifts. And speaking of gifts, I think this is a good pivot point here of those mission territories that you mentioned. I think because they can't experience the sacraments as frequently as we, in the United States are able to, they probably have a greater understanding of the sacraments as gifts, as opposed to, sometimes they can, as humans, as fallen humans, we could feel like, I have to go to mass. I have to go to confession. It's almost like a check mark. You got to check off your boxes and then, okay, I've fulfilled my obligations. But they are a gift in reality. And now that we can't experience those gifts in person, I think it leads us to think about the fact that the sacraments do bring us closer to Christ, and they are great sources of grace, but they're not our sole connection to the Lord. So I wonder if you might talk about a little bit how our parishioners, and specifically our young people, can stay connected and grow in faith during this time where we can't receive those sacramental gifts in person.
Yeah, I mean, certainly our faith is not only sacramental, right? I mean, God is everywhere, and we can see his presence in the beauty of creation. We can see his presence in those around us, but we have to open our eyes. You know, we think that I'm Catholic just because I go to Mass every Sunday and I receive communion. Well, yeah, but that's not true. I mean, yes, that's wonderful, but that communion is supposed to bring about a transformation within you that then you go into the world and become more like Christ in word and deed. And I think that's the part right now that is more needed or more visible to the people, is what everyone's doing to make a difference in bringing the peace of the risen Lord to others. I think of how we're reading from the Acts of the Apostles in the first reading of daily Mass. And I mean, we can all be reading the Mass, we can all be praying the Mass together, even though you can't physically receive communion. And that first reading is from the Acts of the Apostles, how the early disciples were trying to find their way to go out and do what Jesus said, go out and make disciples of all nations. So we're hearing now the early church's story of how they went and did that. But we're doing that too. And by we, I mean the big we, not me and Father Federico. We as a parish are doing that. I mean, you think of all the things that are still going on, even in this time of pandemic, because of people hearing that call to make a difference in the lives of others and wanting to really do that. And so we think of all the people in our parish that make sandwiches each week. They drop them off at one home and that person brings them to the shelter in Waterbury. We think of all the kids from our school who have been helping to make those extenders and the adapters for the mask for the healthcare people. We think of those who are making bedrolls for the homeless. That's still going on, all this stuff. Our prayer shawl ministry of praying hands, making those prayer shawls for people to be comforted. They're going like crazy. People want them. They want to feel that comfort of God. So there are other ways to live out our faith other than the sacraments. The sacraments strengthen us and transform us.
Absolutely.
To then go and do all these works. But, now is the time for us to say, okay, I can't receive you in the gift of the Eucharist, but I can bring your presence into the lives of others. So how is God calling me here and now in the midst of this pandemic to go and make disciples of all nations, to bring his message out in word and deed?
Yeah, I think that right there is where we're at as Catholics in a nutshell. The fact that there is so much still going on at our parish right now, even during this time where it seems like the whole world has come to a standstill, I think that says so much about what it means to be a Catholic and just the strength of our parish in general. Because you're so right that the sacraments are sources of grace and they build us up and they strengthen our faith. But it goes now to that discussion about faith and works, and how faith without works is that faith? Our faith is not one of sitting and doing nothing. Our faith is one of bringing the Lord to other people. And we all have ways in which we're called to do that during quarantine, I think.
Yeah, I mean, think of the words at the end of every Mass. Go and announce the gospel of the Lord. Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your lives. You have to now go and be active. So, that's very clear in the dismissal from Mass, whether it's the priest or the deacon that says it. That's what he's saying. Go now and be like me, like Jesus.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yes.
Go.
Yeah. And Father Federico and I talked early on when we realized this pandemic was, going to be a little longer than we had hoped. about just having Mass every day on live stream, but we saw the importance of offering a variety of things each day so that, you can make an impact in people's faith journeys by helping them get to know the saints, by allowing them some time before the Eucharistic Lord in adoration, by walking the stations of the cross with them. So while Mass is the source and summit, the Eucharist is the source and summit of our lives, and it's central to who we are as a Catholic people, these other things help us to grow and to be nourished as well, so that we can be energized to go forth. So that's why we're offering the variety that we're offering, rather than just doing Mass every day, as some parishes are doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is having an effect. I mean, I won't call anyone out, but one of our NGD members, and we did our high, low, and God moments at the beginning of our last meeting, mentioned the parking lot adoration as their God moment for the week.
Wow.
That's, yeah. So it's having an impact, and I think these experiences of faith are almost more powerful now than they felt before quarantine, because it goes back to you don't know what you have until you don't have it. And when the world goes nuts, our innermost beings, our hearts and our souls, yearn for the Lord, and they yearn for those experiences of being close to him. And I think that's why we're so grateful to have the opportunity to experience the live stream masses, but also to, sit in your living room with you and Father Federico and just have a chat about what's going on, or to do a Bible study, or to be a part of a Eucharistic adoration. This is kind of the Mass is, as you said, the source and summit of our faith. The Mass is the entree of the meal of Catholicism, because without it, there is no meal. But there's also appetizers, there's sides, there's desserts. Like, you can have the entree, and the entree is the best part.
Right.
But now we're getting the full meal. It's a weird analogy, I know, but I think it's a good way to look at, all of these different opportunities to experience our faith we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we certainly are open to other ideas too. So if other people have ideas, they're welcome to email them to us at rectory@stbridge@cheshire.org. We'll give everything consideration. Father and I are open to anything. We're also hopeful that we might see a slow reopening of the parish in the not distant future, hopefully, within state guidelines, of course. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to find creative ways, like we did with the parking lot adoration. My head shows that I was out in the sun a little too. But it was really moving to see, we exposed the Blessed Sacrament on the back of a trailer truck, and that one of our parishioners graciously parked there for us to use, Strollo's towing service, and to see the cars just constantly coming in. There was over 80 cars in the 2-hour period. Some cars stayed for a whole hour, others were there for 15 minutes or so, but it always seemed like more cars were coming in, and I was trying to direct them so that the SUVs were in the back so everyone had a good view, but
right.
It shows that hunger in their hearts to spend time with the Lord. And that was really beautiful and moving for me as the pastor to see so many wanting to come to that. But we're trying to think of other creative things. We have a special surprise this weekend. I can't reveal it today because we reveal it on Saturday at our casual conversation. So tune in at 1:00.
There you go.
But yeah, so we're just trying to get creative ways to bring us together, whether it's virtual or in car for drive-through adoration or whatever we're going to be doing this weekend.
Definitely. The information is out there. And as you said, every day at 1:00, there is a live stream on Facebook, and there is some sort of faith experience for us to experience. So if you haven't checked it out, the barrier of entry is very low. All you need to do is sign on to Facebook, and I really doubt that you would regret it.
Yeah, Facebook, or they could go to our website and go to YouTube from the website. So
yes, multiple channels,
right.
Multiple channels. So I have Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead.
I have two more questions for you. The first is, it kind of ties into that experience that you had during the adoration of just seeing more and more cars coming in.
Mm-hmm.
What has it been like as the pastor? Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I from my view, there's a very special relationship between pastor and parish that is so close to that relationship of Christ to his disciples and the body of Christ. So what has it been like as the pastor to see the online response of the parish to a lot of this content that you and Father Federico and the whole communications team have been putting out?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very, I guess I'd use the word encouraging and uplifting to see how many are joining us for the variety of things, and it's not just the people that join us when it happens, but it's the people that click on it later on too. So they're still having that experience. They may be working at 1:00 on a Wednesday, so
Sure.
and we understand that. But that's the great thing about the social media. You can go back to the parish Facebook page or to the website and be able to click on it and get it later on.
Right.
That's been very encouraging to see how many are participating, how many signed up for the book club and for the Bible study. It's just that we're using Zoom for, and I didn't know if we'd have 5 or 10 for each session. For the book study, there's some like 20 for morning and evening, and the Bible study, I think he's got close to 20 in the morning and maybe 30 in the evening. So
wow,
to see that kind of response, it just shows that there's a hunger in our hearts to continue to grow in our faith and to be together, even if it means virtually. So it's been a very difficult time for me as a shepherd, if I so dare to use that word, the shepherd of the flock here, because so much of what we do involves being close to others. Anointing, we touch their forehead and their hands. Baptizing, pour the water over their head. Confession, offering the laying on of hands, at the graveside, normally giving a hug to someone or, handshake at least. You can't do that.
Right.
So that's been very difficult, especially with all the burials that we've been doing. And unfortunately, we've been doing a significant number, I think more than we would have pre-quarantine. And to be at a graveside with a mask on and having to stay 6 feet apart from someone that's, you've known for 20 years, or, in my case, for someone I've known for 5 or 6 years who just lost their son, and you can't comfort them like you would try to normally. So that's been a real challenge to adapt to that new way of life in ministering to his people. So, and my people. But we go on. I mean, I still had a wedding. I've had 2 weddings now, albeit it was the bride and groom and the maid of honor and best man. And in one case, they had some 30 people in the parking lot that threw rose petals socially distant when they came out. But inside the church, it was just the 4 of them, Julie and I. And then this morning I call it a wedding, but this morning I convalidated a marriage. I blessed the marriage. They were married civilly, and they want to be godparents for somebody that's going to be baptized Sunday. Today we blessed their marriage after working together over a couple months, and it was again just the bride, the groom, the maid of honor, the best man, and myself. So it's a different way of celebrating, but we're still celebrating the sacraments. God's grace is still being poured into the hearts of his people. And I've done a couple baptisms. You got the parents, the godparents, and maybe 1 or 2 sets of grandparents. You only can have up to 10, so we have to really.
Right, you have to keep it down.
Yeah. So, and they stay socially distant. Everyone's been very cooperative with the whole social distancing thing.
Good.
When they come here on property to pray, we're open every day from 10 to 12 when they come to do that. When they come for a sacrament, everyone's been really cooperative with that. So, but as I said, we're continuing to do it. It's just a new way of doing it. And hopefully a temporary way, but it is what it is. And, the point is that we don't want to prohibit someone from experiencing a sacrament or the grace of God if we are able to do it safely.
Absolutely. And that's That's as good a point as any to if people take one thing away, and specifically our young people take one thing away from watching this quarantine chat, is that ministry goes on even in the midst of quarantine and difficulty. And ministry is still going on. And there are still ministers who are there for you. Um, like you said, you've been celebrating sacraments, and the church is open from 10 to 12, and as long as things are able to be kept safe, those openings are still there. So certainly, I would encourage people to reach out if they feel a need.
Yeah, our ministry has taken on a whole new reality in the sense that in the beginning we thought this was going to be like a retreat, and now we're busier than ever.
Right.
We're on Zoom, we're on StreamYard, we're on Facebook, we're here, we're there. We're in the church making sure it's disinfected as people leave after they come to pray. After everyone leaves, we disinfect the area that they sat in to make sure that
Right.
we stop the spread. I said to Father the other night, I feel like we're busier than ever. And it's the constant meetings on Zoom and everything. That ministry is still happening. We're still meeting with our team. We're still meeting with the school faculty every morning to pray together, and then faculty meetings later on in the day, like today. But ministry is happening, and God is still at work in our midst.
Amen.
I assure you of that.
God is always at work. God
Amen.
is always at work. All right. Well, I know you probably have other things going on later in the day, so I'll get one final thought from you, and then I'll let you go get some lunch. So I wonder if you could just give a brief update on what the situation for the parish is regarding the quote unquote soft opening later in the month. I know some people may not have read the latest communications from the Archdiocese. So if you could just give a brief update on where we stand in regards to that, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. So where we stand is the last update from the Archdiocese was that our parish churches, all publicly scheduled masses, are suspended until further notice. So unlike previous declarations that had come out from the Archbishop, where he gave a specific date until March 23rd, until April 30th, whatever, this one said until further notice. So he was very careful, I think, in doing that, because even though part of the state of Connecticut is going to have this soft opening on, what is it, May 20th or 21st?
I believe 20th, yeah.
May 20th. Even though that's happening, it doesn't involve parishes as of yet, because we would obviously have more than 10 people. So,
of course,
as it becomes clearer as to what phase the parishes will be part of in the eyes of the government, then the Archbishop will issue a reopening letter indicating to us what needs to be done, what kind of precautions need to happen. We're not going to go back to normal immediately. So
no.
Anyone that thinks that come June 15th, we're going to be having weekend masses like we did before, that's not going to happen. So I hate to burst any bubbles, but I think the reality is we're going to have to start with a restricted number. It may be that we have to use just one campus for a while because of having staff to be able to disinfect in between masses. It's going to be complicated with two campuses. It may be, adding masses so that instead of our normal schedule, we'll be having one every hour and a half or something, which would provide some time in between for disinfecting. It just comes down to the fact that we're facing the unknown. And we have been since March 16th, or even before that, but really since March 16th. And there's no definitive answer because we don't know when these things are going to happen. So when it becomes clearer that we're going to get close to opening, I understand, I shouldn't say assume, I understand that there will be some guidelines coming out from the Archdiocese. And then we as a pastoral staff and as our parish staff, maintenance in particular, will have to look at those and come up with our own local plan based on those, adhering to them, but we may come up with stricter. Who knows?
Sure.
About taping off certain pews or something, but we got to do whatever we can to continue to allow some kind of an opening, but also to continue to maintain that there's some safety and elimination of the spreading of this disease.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you for that, Father. I just thought maybe, in case some people hadn't seen that latest communication, or, I don't want anyone thinking that,
Yeah,
the state has a soft opening and we're right back to normal on May 20th. So
yeah.
important.
I clearly don't believe that even in June, the early June, I don't think we'll be back to what quote unquote normal would be. I think it's going to be months down the road that we're going to still be wearing masks and perhaps even have to wear gloves when we come into the church building because you can touch the pews, right? So, we're going to have to see how that plays out, but for sure it's going to be a new normal. And
Certainly.
we'll rejoice when we have the opportunity to be together again physically in the building at the altar of God to receive that sacramental grace and the gift of the Eucharist. Certainly we all long for that, or at least most of us long for that. I hope everyone. And some of what we've been doing during this time of pandemic will continue on. That's been a question that parishioners have asked. Will we continue our casual conversations on Saturday? Well, yeah, I think people really like that. It helps them get to know their priest and our likes and dislikes and how we juggle the ministry and with our own personal desire for some free downtime and activities that are not necessarily associated with our ministry, going to the beach or climbing a mountain or whatever activity we like. So I think you'll see some of the things we're doing continue on, but maybe at different times or different days. As
Certainly.
as we move forward.
We're I think the bottom line and the name of the game is we're in a holding pattern, and we're gonna continue to reassess and keep trying to figure out the best way to move forward as new guidelines and as new information comes out. So,
Exactly. But I think, as you said in your blog this week, it will happen. We will be moving forward.
Certainly.
And we will get back to some kind of normalcy, but hopefully not what was normal in the past. Hopefully we'll see that these weeks of pandemic, these weeks of self-isolation and quarantine, if you will, have taught us that we need some downtime and some time with God to hear his voice.
Amen.
So, that's another hope that I have, not just a deeper desire for the Eucharist, but also a deeper desire to spend time with God in prayer will come out of this.
Yeah, certainly. The stillness has certainly ratcheted up, which can be difficult in a lot of ways, but stillness is often where we hear the voice of God and where God speaks to us. So I think that's another thing that we should try to take back into the real world with us.
Yeah, if I always tell people start with 5 or 10 minutes a day. If they're not in habit of spending a longer time, 5 or 10 minutes a day where you just spend there quiet, listening for God's voice, maybe looking at the crucifix, and then build on that as time goes. And then you'll really grow an appreciation for that stillness. But there are people that find that very difficult too.
Of course. Yeah. I'm one of them. I'm not great at sitting in the stillness and listening, but we will never, ever, ever have time. Hopefully, God willing, have the time as much as we do now again.
You're the Martha of Martha and Mary, huh?
I'm the doer, the goer. I like my relaxation time, but it's even in my relaxation time, I'm discussing or watching or reading, and it's very difficult to just sit.
Right.
So we're all learning. We're all learning.
We are. And we're also, I just wanted to put out a plug out there that if any parishioners are watching this and that they feel really lonely and just need a friend to talk to please give us a call. Father Federico and I are here. Had a couple of phone calls yesterday. The person both times, they just wanted to call and say hi and hear a friendly voice. So that's what we're here for. I mean, that's part of our ministry, is to be there for people in time of need. So if anyone's feeling that way, they're welcome to give us a call. We'll be happy to chat for a few minutes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have 2 excellent priests. So please do not fail to, don't be afraid to take advantage of the gifts that we've been given.
Amen.
So, all right, Father, any final thoughts as we begin to wrap up here?
I just really excited for when we do get back to seeing the fruits of this time. Hopefully we'll see that deeper desire for the Eucharist and to be together. Hopefully we'll see a kinder society, one in which we recognize the need to be kinder to one another and to really reflect the love of God in our thoughts and deeds. And I'm looking forward to seeing NGD grow and go.
Definitely. As am I. As am I. It'll be can't wait to get back together in person, but we're doing great even in quarantine.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Father Romans, for taking some time out of your very busy quarantine day to chat with me. And certainly I look forward to seeing you in person again as soon as possible.
You too. Thanks, Regis. Thanks for all you're doing for our parish. God bless you.
Thank you, Father. My pleasure.